evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Troutdale Planning Commission for Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. We can have a roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Glantz.
Present.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Here.
Commissioner Kester.
Here.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Prickett.
Here.
Chair Stephenson.
Here.
Yes. Commissioner Minkoff.
Kevin's audio is rejoining.
Okay, this time I would like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Prickett will be leading us this evening. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the Planning Commission this evening on a non-agenda item?
Chair, one note of clarification for people who will be watching this recording. The testimony table Zoom thing is labeled as Mayor Ritma, and I don't believe that the mayor is actually here.
He's not.
Let
That
me-
is the testimony table. And it's RIP MA.
We did that.
Okay. Is there anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission online under public comment? Seeing none? Okay, did everyone receive a copy of the minutes from the October 8th, 2025 meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Wilcox. We'll start with you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chair Stephenson. I don't have any actual typos, but I had a question on one of the statements under numeral 4, review and discussion. It states collected, this is about the Halsey corridor, collected information from tabling efforts, which include strong support for increasing building height, step backs, etc. I watched Dakota's presentation of the Halsey information from MIG on the CAC before the CAC, and the sampling from their tabling was less than a dozen people. So that's kind of a strong statement based on that small a sampling.
Wasn't it like or something like that?
Yeah.
Did you catch that, Commissioner Wilcox? I was asking, was it like 9 or something?
Yeah.
Amongst the participants, the trend was clear, but to Commissioner Wilcox's point, the sample size was quite small.
I mean, I don't know, for me, it's even to kind of include that as a sample.
Yeah.
Is pretty small, pretty low.
Yeah, the strong word is kind of heavy considering the number of people who responded and what their interest was.
Okay, what if we edited it? Something to the effect of the, I don't know, 9, 10, whatever it is that took the survey, was support for an increased building height. Would that be better?
Yeah, that sounds better. Just specify the very small sampling number.
Yeah. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Commissioner Clams?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll make that edit. Go ahead, Commissioner Wilcox.
That's all I had.
Okay. Anyone else? Corrections, edits? All right. With that, I would entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Chair Stephenson,
Commissioner Cricket,
I move that we accept the minutes of October 8th, 2025 regular meeting as amended.
Second?
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes from October 8th, 2025 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that carries. All right. On to more exciting things. And that would be the Oregon Housing Legislative Update.
Yes. So now,
Good evening.
good evening, Chair Stephenson, good evening, Commissioners. Since we've come to the end of the year here, I really kind of wanted to give you an update about how busy the Oregon legislature has been this year when it comes to building and planning issues, especially issues that focus around residential housing here in Oregon. So in your packet, I put together kind of a brief memo with all of the Senate bills and House bills that kind of revolve around community development. So either there's changes that will be affecting like our engineering staff, planning staff, and building staff. Kind of that's involved in all of these 10 or so Senate bills and House bills before us. So just briefly, I was gonna run through each one and answer maybe some, any questions that you might have. I know in the electronic packet, I have linked all of the House bills so you can click on them if you want to really do a deep dive into some of the language here. You certainly can do so. And I am not an expert in all of these House bills and Senate bills by any means. I am still learning. There's a lot of rulemaking still to be had by the state in regards to some of these. And some of the new statutes actually will be sunsetting over a period of time. So they're only, and in fact, in state law for 7 or so years. And we'll touch base on some of those. So Senate Bill 974 that's probably the most meaty of the Senate bills in this packet. Senate Bill 974, there's a couple provisions that affect community development and engineering. And the first one is engineering review. And what the Senate bill does is it takes our engineering review for private developments. So once a person applies for their building permit, they submit their public improvement plans for public improvement. Our city engineer now has 120 days to go through that review process. So they've made it very similar to our planning review, which is a maximum of 120 days. In some cases, not all cases, because they've shortened that review time for certain development types. And then in Senate Bill 974, they've streamlined some type 2 applications for certain residential applications. So for example, and I'll just provide some examples here. If you're zoned medium density residential and you want to go to high density residential, we may make that application and it's going to be a type 2 zoning application. If you want to do a planned unit development, it's a type 2 application. And then there's different processes for like variances and residential standards. So for example, if you do if you do a subdivision and you build more than 20 homes, at this point in time, the city, we cannot apply design standards. If it's less than 20 homes, we can. We can apply design standards to multifamily though. They have allowed that. And I believe that it's effective next year, next July 1st, 2026. And I believe it sunsets though in 2033. So.
Under what circumstances would you have more than 20 units that isn't multifamily?
So for example, if you do a subdivision and a subdivision is different
Oh,
than
and a whole
multifamily,
subdivision,
but
okay, I was thinking, just, you
So
know.
there's no design standards if it's more than 20, or
correct,
20 or more?
20 or more.
So we basically, we can't apply the design standards to a full subdivision, a full large
A
subdivision.
large subdivision
Okay.
of 20 or more. Correct.
Commissioner Glantz?
I have a couple questions. On the Senate Bill 974, it says that local governments, the very first bullet, local governments must determine within 30 days whether an application is complete.
Yes.
Is that an issue? I mean, sometimes I thought we had to rely on like Gresham Fire or other public entities to respond to us.
This is such a great question, Commissioner Glantz. I've been having this conversation with our planning staff. Typically, it's not an issue. But it has been an issue before in the past when it comes to getting information from Multnomah County Transportation Department. I've been thinking about this process and how we can solve this problem. I've come up with a solution. I am reaching out to Multnomah County Transportation Department to talk about this new process with them and how we can ensure that we have all the information we need up front so we can do that review of completion within 30 days and we're not holding up the applicant. That's the worst. That's not customer friendly. I hate it. So I'm talking to Multnomah County Department of Transportation, and I hope to have this problem like remedied here within the next couple of weeks. And when we do, I'll talk about that solution with the Planning Commission and how we solved it.
Okay.
I think it's going to be easier for the applicant and easier for staff.
And on the streamlined type 2, if I have 10 duplexes, is that 20 homes or is that multifamily?
That's 20 homes because duplexes are classified as the single, even though they're not single family detached, they're single family attached, and they don't fall into that multifamily category of sharing walls and being 5 units or more.
So 20 row homes would also be 20 unique homes.
Yes.
So I just wanted 20 row homes, if they're on their own lots.
Okay.
I think they would be classified individually as 20 individual homes. But
Okay.
if they're all on the same lot and connected, it would be multifamily.
Multifamily, but you could parse those out.
But you
then,
could,
because you can make a lot out of 1,500 feet.
And so let's say it's what is it, MU20 now? Can they go in and put 10 row homes in there on a lot? Because they can decrease the actual zoning. or is it only a one-step decrease?
No, I don't read it as one step. Do you, Ms. Palmer? I read it as it can be increased.
I read it as being increased. So if you can only use this provision in Senate Bill 974 if you're increasing density. So for example, if you're going from medium density to high density, or if you're going from low density to medium density.
Okay,
Go from
so
low-
if you're going from a low density to a higher density, that's not included. Or that is what they're talking about.
Is what they're talking about.
is
So that's why I'm saying if you have something that is at one spectrum, which
Well-
isn't that like, it used to be R20s and now I think it's MU20s or something. Which is the what, minimum 10,000 square foot up to 20,000 square foot lots. Could you put in, would it be 12 row homes, each with a 1,150 square foot lot?
It would have to go through the rezoning process, but
Okay,
sounds like to me.
But what exactly is the rezoning process? I don't see one other than if you are increasing the residential density, there is nothing to prevent a zone change.
So a zone change application would be a type 2 application if you go from a lower density to a higher density designation. You still have to provide all the materials that you need to provide through a zone change application. So you're gonna have to demonstrate to the city that there is a need for this type of higher density housing. You're still gonna have to present the traffic impact analysis, most likely, if you're going from a low zoning density to a higher density.
Okay. And I understand.
So it's not going to planning commission or city council for approval.
When it
It's
goes,
no.
what would happen, I mean, originally it doesn't look like get involved in rezoning because that's part of the comprehensive plan?
Well, this would have been a comp plan.
Yes,
But they
This has gone from a type 4 to a type 2.
correct.
which is,
And the notice is 100 feet,
well, that could be the,
which is nothing.
right, that could be a vacant lot next door.
And I guess one of the questions, and I'll put somebody on the spot here, CAC. This is really gonna be a problem for community involvement.
For notification radius, yeah, I mean, it certainly could.
Notification, ability to even comment, and there's no appeal. So like, unlike, normally, if you submitted comments or testified, you have appeal rights.
Yeah. I
You
know.
can submit
Although
comments.
in practice, that's a big if, just because, as
Right.
Commissioner Prickett so aptly put, nobody does. But yeah, I get where you're going with that, Sheriff Stephenson. It certainly is something that we would want to, as a city, for the purposes of involvement and notification, make sure that we're being as robust as we can about notices and trying to streamline the input mechanisms for not just the people within the whatever 100-foot radius that is, but I mean just wider. I mean, I guess for all of our, I mean, we're gonna wanna start putting things out there for a lot of things that we wouldn't normally communicate to the public.
And I just want to clarify that all parties have the right to due process. And so somebody could appeal this type 2 decision. It's there. It allows for an appeal.
But I'm still trying to wrap up, how do we then adjust our comp plan to allow for this? I mean,
So for example, if you're you're zoned low density residential as a comp plan designation, and you wanna go to, let's just say, high density residential. All those zoning designations are residential, right? So you're not changing the comp plan map, you're changing the
Right.
zoning map. That's the map that changes.
It's,
One other question, go ahead. So one other question on that. Didn't we recently change what is type 2? And didn't we put in an option where it can still go to planning commission even as a type 2?
Well, okay. Staff has the ability to take a type 2 and bump it to a type 3, and the ability to type 3 and bump it to a type 4, same thing with type 1. They have the discretion to bump any of those that they see fit, except for the way that I read this, these 2s are not bumpable.
Correct. That's the way
They
I.
cannot be bumped to a type 3.
So what if they still need a variance? How does that become a type 2 and not have public comment open time?
So it will have public comment, so,
within 100 feet.
Yeah.
right. It's a minimum of 100 feet. We can,
Right.
if our standard is more than 100 feet, we're still notifying those that our standard is. So this is just setting the minimum of 100 feet.
And wouldn't, I guess this is just for the zoning change, but eventually when any land use applications come through, all of those would be typed independently of the zoning change, and any variances would adjust the type of application it is accordingly, correct?
So,
I know, this is.
in Senate Bill 974, I believe it sets.
Can you repeat that?
Well, I guess, because in the application for zoning change, there's really not a whole lot of variance that you can do with that, right? And there's not,
You can ask for variances.
in a zoning change? I
In
thought,
part of the same application.
I guess I'm probably a little confused in the process, because I guess I always thought that variances were more with the land use.
Well, no, so you're asking for a zoning change to do X,
Yeah,
and then because I want to do X, I need 3 variances for setbacks or height or whatever,
so
so I
that-
ask for everything at the same time.
I guess that was the question, is I thought those had to be handled independently.
No.
Okay, that was my confusion.
Yeah, no,
That
those
would
do
be-
not have to be reviewed independently of one another. And in fact, there's Oregon case law that we like to see a whole, combined application. So if you're asking for a zone change and you need a variance, that those come in and be reviewed
So
together.
would that be,
And we call that concurrency.
Right, and I guess that sort of makes the calculus potentially a little easier then, because then and if you have requesting a 20% variance on criterion X, Y, Z, wouldn't that variance by itself bump it up to a type 3?
Sometimes it does, and with this Senate bill, sometimes it won't, because the Senate bill also allows for some variances to be reviewed as a type 2 review.
So long story short, it's a mess.
Somebody went to Houston, liked what they saw, and decided they were gonna try it here. I was gonna say, if I look at, number 7 in 974, the initial decision on the application must be made without a hearing. Local government may provide for a hearing on appeal of the initial decision.
Mhm.
And then the appeal process is through LUBA. So it's not like it would go to, like they would today, where type 2 gets appealed, it goes to planning commission. The staff decision gets appealed to the planning commission decision gets appealed to city council decision gets appealed to LUMA.
So it goes straight to Louisville.
It goes straight to LUMA.
Why are we here?
Pardon?
Why are we here? I mean, why is the planning commission even here? At this
Well,
point?
the other thing, and it's kind of like, does, is this when, pardon?
Does Luba have enough docket space to deal with these?
Yeah, I don't know if it goes to I think, seven, it doesn't state that it goes to Luba.
The appeal is to the Land Use Board of Appeals in section 4. And that's the decisions above.
Tier before local government.
I'm just hoping that this doesn't result in
That's a good question. I'm gonna look into
University of
that a little
Oregon
bit more.
closing their urban planning program, Portland State closing their planning program. And cities laying off staff, frankly. It's discouraging. Merry Christmas.
All right, so that is Senate Bill
Sorry.
Senate Bill
9974. And then we get to Senate Bill 1099, and this just allows preschool near places of worship. And I believe this really doesn't have any effect on Troutdale. We're pretty much in compliance now. And then we have House Bill 2005.
Oh, Erica,
Yes,
I had some questions on 1099.
yes.
My first question is the use of the word near. Is that in the actual legislation? I mean, what do they mean by near? Could be next door, across the street. What are we talking about geographically?
In or close proximity.
Yeah, 'cause the first bill says preschool pre-K uses must be allowed in any places where worship is permitted. It's not, the bullet point sounds like, if you put up a church or a chapel, you have to allow a preschool in the same site.
I just questioned the insertion of the word near in the first title line. Also under the first bullet point, it says must be allowed in any place where worship is permitted. Doesn't that give it a business advantage to church people versus non-church people?
Yes. I guess the other question I would have is, from a building code standpoint, what your requirements are for a church are different once you start making classrooms and other areas. So I'm just wondering how that gets done. Is that going to fall under reasonable regulations related to?
Yeah, I think the building department would have to look at those individually, because some churches are assemblies and fall under the assembly classification, and I believe some preschools do too, depending on size.
Right. And I know preschools are a little bit different, but like when you get into K to 6, especially for egress and emergency and security and access and things of that nature, the requirements are significantly different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
Then we have House Bill 2005, which deals with behavioral health facility siting. And I believe right now, Troutdale is already in compliance. We do allow these treatment facilities and residential homes by right within our residential commercial employment areas. And then we get to House Bill 2138, which deals again with middle housing and middle housing land divisions. So in this bill, it lays out that our tree removal standards need to be clear and objective. And right now we're doing an urban forest management plan that's looking at our tree code, is doing an audit to make sure that our tree standards are clear and objective. That's one of the goals of that.
Are they not now?
I think there's a little language in our code that wishy-washy and not clear and objective. But I would say probably for the most part, our code is pretty good.
Usually it's based on the arborist report, right, as far as tree removal or mitigation, so I'm just wondering if the standards are clear and objective, shouldn't that be supported by a professional?
Yeah, in some situations, but let's just say if you want to remove a tree and our code says you can remove a tree you can remove a street tree without a permit if it's less than, 6 diameters and breast height, that's clear and objective. So we just want to make sure that our standards are clear and objective, and sometimes we may need to call in and ask for an arborist.
Well, we wouldn't.
You ask them to provide that information to us if we need it, but yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Because I went through this with the property I bought behind me, where I read through and I didn't think it was clear at all. And I remember emailing, I think it was the planning department, and copying Ray, and it was basically you can do anything you want if it's your property. The only rules we have are what's adjacent to the street, and that wouldn't necessarily change a lot, as long as you have the minimums in place, which I think is like 1 every 100 feet or something like that.
So we do have some regulations regarding trees on private property that deals with a development application. So if you come in and you want to develop your lot, but let's just say you have a large, and I forget what our code calls out.
I thought it was 24-inch diameter.
24, so then that tree would need to be preserved. And if you
But that wasn't on private property, that was only on the street.
No, I believe it's on private property. I believe.
When I brought in about it, I was told no. I can pull that up, that you can do anything you want on your personal property. Because I had some really big trees removed without any issue based on that.
Okay. I will look into that.
I'll see if I can find the email.
Which there was a reason for that at the time, and that was like if you had a tree, which in my case happens, a tree falls down in the winter, and it was actually a deal where you couldn't, it might be blocking the highway, it could be on your house, and you couldn't deal with it until you got issued a permit to deal with the tree.
It fell over.
I know.
And that's why lots of tree codes in different communities will have an exception clause.
Yeah.
That
We-
calls out
We
for
didn't,
emergency
we didn't
situations.
have one, and frankly, it was kind of ridiculous. You have a tree down and somebody's trying to cut it up so people can get down the road, oh, we gotta wait.
House Bill 2138 also calls for middle housing land divisions to be streamlined and clear and objective. And I know that Dakota was here at our last meeting talking about middle housing land division standards, because currently we do not have any standards in our code. And he's going to be bringing back some draft language to the commission early in 2026 for everyone to review, so we can create those standards and have those standards in our code dealing with middle housing land divisions. So if somebody comes in, I just want to, and maybe Dakota stated this at the last meeting, but if somebody comes in right now and they want to do a middle housing land division, they can't. They just have to use House Bill 458, Senate Bill 458. Senate Bill 458 deals with middle housing, and it lays out kind of all the criteria that a person has to meet on their preliminary plat review for planning. That's a tongue twister there.
On 2138, we also mentioned incentives. Is that spelled out, quantified, or anything? What would these be? How much would they be for middle housing?
I don't think it's not spelled out in this House bill, what those would be. It just says that cities could,
Could? It says incentives, it doesn't say.
And when we get into
Potential.
updating our housing needs analysis, if there is a need for, let's just say, additional middle housing units that fall within a price type category, the state is saying to us, hey, you can develop some incentives or some affordable measures to help the city meet that goal over time. To work
Would that
with
most
developers.
likely be in the form of SDCs or something?
It could be, I think cities are still trying to figure out what all of these range of options and incentives are going to be to increase middle housing and to increase different types of housing. And it's a challenge because as many of you know, it's a budget challenge too, because we rely on SDCs to expand our water, sewer, and streets and
Well, I guess the reason I bring this up is I see incentives for accessible, affordable middle housing, and I think, this is just me, my pea brain goes to probably SDCs, which would have to be paid back by the general fund
correct.
by state statute. And this is for a city that had to cut its police coverage because it couldn't afford it. That was gonna backfill incentives for housing. I mean, maybe, I just think that's gonna be a tough conversation for you folks.
And then we have House Bill 2347, and
Oh, Erica, excuse me.
Commissioner.
I have a question on 2138, the second bullet from the bottom. Covenants restricting middle or manufactured housing are void starting January 1, 2027. Can you give me an example of what they're talking about, covenants?
So, for example, if you live in a subdivision that has CC&Rs, and those CC&Rs restrict any middle housing from developing, or placing manufactured homes, within that subdivision, that will be void starting January 1st, 2027. So you have to allow all housing types. Your CCNRs cannot restrict a certain housing type.
Okay, so so you're saying if the house next door to us burned down, it could be replaced with a manufactured home?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
When we're talking about manufactured standards, there's a new
Yep.
thing on Horizon that they built a site-built house off the site and bring it, because I know Canada does it. They actually it's not like a manufactured home where you.
It's a prefab.
It's a
home.
prefab house made somewhere else,
Yep.
and they put it, it's like a puzzle, they bring it in, they put it together, they slap it together, and it's basically saves time, energy, and cuts the cost.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what they're looking at as far as manufactured homes?
Mhm.
Because I know that was on the horizon
Yep.
not too long ago. And so will they have the same standards as a site-built house? Or will they have the standards like a manufactured home? That's my question. Because the standards are different.
Yes.
When you have a manufactured home, it's built and travels together.
We have to treat all housing the same.
Right, so, but it's not the same.
But
That's
we
the
can,
thing.
so for example, if we have design standards for a single family stick-built house, we can apply those same design standards to the manufactured dwelling. This allows for that to happen. And House Bill 2001, when we went through our design standards for housing, I wasn't here during that time, but a lot of communities looked at manufactured design standards to ensure that they were the same as the other housing standards within the code. And I can look at our housing standards tomorrow.
Because I know
for
there's
manufactured homes.
a difference. If my house goes up in a fire, it takes a little longer than if you're a manufactured home. I've seen a manufactured home go up like that. I've had a house fire, so I know it depends on how fast the fire department gets there. But it took longer to damage my house than it did a manufactured home, which would be down to the ground.
Yeah, I don't believe they're even 2x6, are they? I think they're 2x4.
They're 2x4. So they're not the same standard.
Construction standards, but you can have the same design standards.
Right.
Okay.
So that's looking at window coverage, awnings, canopies, facade type. So it blends in.
Yeah.
Oh, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Commissioner Allen.
So, question, does that means that, say, Paul's neighbor's house burns down, they're making manufacturing home out of Connex boxes, but we don't allow Connex boxes. They wouldn't be able to put a Connex box out there unless it had the same standards as far as, um, outside requirements, right?
Right. And that's, yes, you are correct. And it still has to meet building code. So that Connex box still.
So how do you design, I mean, I've seen where they have manufactured it out of comics boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But,
If they throw shutters on it, are we good?
yeah, just, a window or two and then throw a couple of shutters on and you're good to go.
We have a list of design standards in our code that folks can choose from.
It's called being modernist.
Yeah, we should run through that mental exercise and see what it looks like.
Well, and I think the other thing to note is if the neighbor's house burns down, the other thing, aside from the manufactured home that could potentially go in, is middle housing.
Right, it could be a fiveplex that goes in.
Well, fiveplex is multifamily, so it
Okay,
would
so-
have to be,
It'd have to be, I mean, it could be a quad.
it could be a quad.
I mean, if the lot allows for it, then middle housing land division
But
could
would the
take it.
infrastructure handle it? That's the issue.
Well, but that's the thing, I mean, from a code standpoint,
Right.
that's when the middle housing land division rules would kick in.
Can't they just leave it alone?
And then we have House Bill 2658, which is the frontage improvements for building alterations. And what this House Bill is saying, with cities that have a population over 15,000 or more, we can't require frontage improvements for those small scale remodels or alterations that don't increase the square footage or change the occupancy type of the building. And the alteration, the cap for that is it has to be an improvement that's less than $150,000. And that $150,000 adjusts annually for inflation, of course, and this starts beginning January 1st of 2031. However, there are some caveats that I found really interesting in this House bill. And that if there is an ADA improvement that needs to be done along the frontage, they have to do that improvement because ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, calls for it. If the city, we could actually put a condition on there stating that you need to sign a non-remonstrance agreement for, let's say, for a future local improvement district. So if the city creates a local improvement district at some point in the future for sidewalk improvements, that property owner has to join that local improvement district because they had signed a non-remonstrance agreement. So there's some caveats in here that will allow for those improvements to happen.
But do we require a lot of improvements now on a remodel?
We don't. It depends. It depends on what they're doing, what's the scope and size.
I wonder if, and I guess I'd have to go back through the news to find out, I wonder if this one is at all related to that dust up that was in the news and in the courts where the one business owner sued because they got charged for doing improvements that essentially the city and the state was gonna do anyway.
I was informed that they had to upgrade their sidewalks and, because it was on a corner, they had to upgrade their sidewalks to ADU and traffic, whatever, signage and all that. They had to, but the city was gonna do it anyway, but they got charged to do it. It was like $150,000 or something.
Yeah.
But they went to court and the city lost because they were gonna do the improvements anyway.
But if it's a commercial project,
Right.
right, 25% of your project has to be dedicated to the ADA travel plan. So a lot of times you get stuck, I don't mean stuck, but you end up doing something like sidewalks or curbs or whatever because you have to spend the money on ADA. And that may be a way to accommodate that.
This one's probably gonna be effectively pretty minor.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, as this is the second House bill relating to childcare. And this is childcare in multi-units and institutional zones. And it just is saying that, childcare centers can become an outright and allowed use in multi-unit residential and institutional zones. And it expands some additional definitions as well.
Oh, Erica,
Yes.
On that one, what comes to mind is actually the withdrawn application from Yuri's daycare.
Mhm.
So the way I read this, if they hold out until 2027, they can just bypass planning commission entirely, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Just for the record, we weren't the cog in the wheel there.
That's right.
Yeah, wasn't the county transportation analysis the hold up there?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, they wouldn't even have to have, impact statement here at all.
No, we built 86.
And then we have House Bill 2258, and this is pre-approved housing plans. And DLCD, they're gonna be making some rules in regards to these housing plans. These housing plans are not even out yet. But they're trying to make it easier for folks to get a hold of housing plans that they like. So it's easier to build.
It's just as a point of clarification, because I was wondering what the LCDC acronym was. Is that just somebody being dyslexic and that's supposed to be DLCD?
No, it's it's the Land Commission Develop. So they are the rule-making authority for DLCD. They are the commission.
I was wondering if that was a mistype or if that was an acronym. I wasn't sure of that.
That's a new acronym for you, Commissioner Kester.
Okay.
Then we have House Bill 3031, which deals with housing infrastructure. And it talks about how the state has put some money away in a bucket that's available for transportation, water, and wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure when you have multifamily development projects, so projects that support 17 units per acre or more. And then they have some grants and some other forgivable funds for affordable housing as well.
10 million doesn't seem like much for infrastructure. That's like a project, maybe.
I agree, Commissioner Lennox, it really isn't a lot of money.
No, it's probably ODOT Christmas tree roofers.
So if you do a deep dive into some of these bills and have some questions, feel free to reach out to me. We can walk through your questions, and of course, if I don't know the answer, because like I said, I am not an expert yet in each and one of these House bills and Senate bills, I will find you the information that you need.
So I guess
Is there anything that we could be doing now to prepare for this? Like restructuring our type 2 procedure? Or is that a state mandated?
That is the type 2 is state mandated.
Okay.
A couple of thoughts just for now. I guess the first question I've got in mind would be, how do we not go from where we are, let's say, single-family residential to high-density residential? I read this and it doesn't indicate that it's like up a notch, up a step. It just says increasing density.
Right, increasing residential development, residential to residential, you're just increasing the units.
So theoretically, like next to your house, I don't want to create panic here, but you could have a 35-foot or higher multifamily structure in any subdivision, if I'm reading this correctly.
Although in most single-family zoned subdivisions, wouldn't just the sheer limitations on existing lot sizes make a multifamily structure, a high-density multifamily structure, just economically untenable?
Well, just because there's,
And it would
you
require
know, most
a giant
subdivisions
lot.
are like, 5,000 square foot lots.
Yeah, and it just wouldn't be practical. I mean, there wouldn't be enough interior volume to go high density.
Sure, you could easily get 4, maybe even 6 units in a 5,000 square foot lot. You go up 3 stories, partial, like a lot of apartments where the base is a little bit below ground and then on up, you can hit that.
Yeah, it seems,
But people can build a quadplex on
just
any
not-
lot
Yeah,
that's zoned for single family residential.
Right, but
Right now,
if I have a 10,000 square foot lot,
but that 10,000 square foot lot is probably not within the low,
I have an 8,000, my house is sitting on an 8,000.
just 8,000 square feet. Do you know your zoning district?
We're over by Maury, so we're off right behind the Albertsons.
Aren't you a planned community?
at least R7, pardon me?
Right, the minimum is R7, but we have an 8,000 square foot lot.
Okay.
But we were planned for different, we have duplexes. Ones with both houses are the same, they're on separate lots. We have it all except apartments. But with the 8,000 square feet, you can do a lot. And a fourplex would be nothing, but you could probably build up a little bit more. So all our lots are individually, they're not all the same size.
But you would have to go through the rezoning process to do that.
You would? Okay, why is that?
But according to this, we don't have to. We're doing multifamily.
Well, if I'm increasing the density,
But if you're in, so what this is saying in Senate Bill 974,
please help me.
a zone change to allow for denser residential use designation. So all these lots in here are zoned low density residential.
Right.
All these lots in here can have they can build a quadplex. That's the highest density that they can have according to this zoning district. They would, if you want more than a quadplex on one of these lots, you would have to go through the rezoning process to medium density or high density.
Would that be a type 2?
That would be a type 2, and then the applicant still has to provide us with enough information
Right. To justify.
to justify it. And there's an appeal process.
What's the appeal process? Is there a fee involved and we don't know who it goes to, correct?
Correct, so that's one of the questions here that I made note on, because it doesn't really, I don't think it goes straight to LUBA. I think the appeals process,
I thought I read that it didn't have to,
right,
which made me think that it still could.
so I'm gonna
It
look
doesn't
at,
have to go where?
Straight to Luba.
so I'm gonna look into that question, because I think that's still in our local control.
Okay. Is there any consideration for, like, what if somebody puts in a gravel private road, could you still put multifamily in there? Or is there any consideration for traffic impact?
I don't believe there's a consideration for traffic impact.
It's one of the things I worry about is some of our developable land is to the south. And we currently have it zoned to some, pretty large lots, relatively speaking. And we kind of need some of those just because of sewer lines and, load on the system and, quite frankly, property tax revenue. So splitting those into multifamily, like, doesn't seem to accomplish the goal, and especially there's no transit anywhere nearby within a mile or two, which seems a disservice to everyone. Sorry, you can move here, but you can't flush your toilet. It's fine. What do they just call those septic tanks? You have to put in a septic tank. Figure it out.
Yeah, no, it would be, sewer would be a condition.
Yeah,
I believe you'd have to.
because you would still have to have the developer would still have to pay to put in the appropriate
Improvements. Yes.
Infrastructure improvements.
Yes.
But that comes back to the city because you can put a giant, tube that says, here's all the stuff. But if there's only a small connector, because that's how it was built out, that doesn't get you where you need to go.
I still, just for clarification, I look at section 3(1) of 974.
Yep.
And I read, a zone change to allow for a denser residential use designation. I don't see step up.
What do you mean?
So it's like, it seems to me I could go from single family to multifamily, or high density.
You could. You could make an application for a zone change like that.
Okay, so that would be more density,
Correct.
quite a bit more density.
Correct.
Okay.
But you still have to go through the zone change process and justify all the reasons why you're making that zone change.
I mean, that's easy because I want to create more housing, which creates more profit. Is that an unacceptable use or reason?
Can you repeat that, Commissioner Lance?
Yeah, I mean, what if I just say I want to create more housing? Isn't that what they want to hear?
Yes and no. You have to look at our housing needs analysis and demonstrate that we need a particular housing product that serves a particular price point, and we are deficient within a particular zone for that type of housing.
Okay. I thought it didn't matter. I thought if it's type 2, it's kind of like, are you close? Are you using the area? Cool.
It's a type 2 review, it's a staff review, but staff, we have to make sure that they're meeting all the criteria.
Okay.
Because they have to demonstrate to us as staff that, yes, there's a need for this type of housing, there's a need for this, price point. Our housing needs analysis shows that we're deficient. So there's a lot of check boxes that we need to cross off to make sure.
I mean, so the last housing needs analysis I saw, we were not deficient in multifamily.
We were.
We were?
I think
Yeah.
we're short.
We were short about 500-ish at the time, which we've made significant progress on that.
Okay.
But the key was we were short 1,100 in higher end housing. So it was more than double the need for the higher end housing than the lower end housing. And
Okay.
so they've got a series, my question would be, we've got a series of standards here, and everything from double secret probation on down to practically flogging if you don't meet these standards for higher density, but then I'm not seeing anything if you're not meeting the housing needs on the other side of the equation. Anything where you're even trapped. Do you see that?
In this house bill?
Yeah.
No. And I think the state's probably gonna get that question here, probably over the next several years from cities that are, their housing needs are, stating that, they're in need of single-family, detached housing at a higher level price point.
Right, and so if we paid the money to do the housing needs analysis, and we're required by state law to follow the housing needs analysis, wouldn't there be a reasonable argument that we should be following the housing needs analysis and not just taking chapter 2.1 and doing that and then forgetting the next two chapters or whatever it is? It just seems that we're just picking and choosing rather than saying, okay, holistically, this is what our city needs and how do we get there?
Yeah, and I think right now our housing needs analysis, like you said, Commissioner Stephenson, does indicate that the city is deficient in single-family homes at a higher price point. I think what's difficult for the city of Troutdale right now is where can those homes be built? There's not a lot of vacant land anymore for housing in Troutdale, so we have some spaces that haven't developed, but
Right. But I guess if you're trying to cover all of those, I think somehow our standards should be reasonable and flexible enough that we can accommodate both sides. More than what we're,
Well, right now they're focused on middle housing. I think they're like kind of narrow, they're looking down a tunnel and this is what they think we all need, but they don't realize there's more than just middle housing. that
Well,
needs to be-
the goal that Salem seems to be focused on is just raw income. And that's really what the goal from the State House and the Governor's Office has been in the last couple of years, is just increasing inventory. And doing it as fast as possible. Middle housing has been kind of the key vehicle to get there.
But it's not made it any more affordable.
Right,
Middle hou- they have-
because nobody's
middle housing
nobody's
doesn't make
actually
it any
pulled it
more
off.
affordable than it, I mean, we have affordable housing across the street, but to me, what's affordable and what I think is affordable is two different things.
Right, well, part of that is just because, I mean, inventory has not kept up with demand for decades.
decades. You're right.
And until the inventory for starter homes, as an example, starts exceeding or starts even approaching demand, prices are not gonna come down.
That's true, but I mean, if you're making, when I travel out by Harlow High School, they have row houses upon houses that are stacked together. But they're trying to make up for, but once you're behind, you're behind. There's no, I mean, you can't make it up. It can take you 50 years to make it up. But why?
I don't think it'll take that long because you have baby boomers dying off. And the reason they're trying to not move is because interest rates haven't dropped again, so they can't afford to refinance into something smaller.
Well, I agree on that one, but when I bought our house, it was 12%. So, I mean, and that was back in the early 80s. So, I mean, we figured out a way to afford it. But even then, it was hard to afford a house. So, I get that. I get the fact that some people can't.
Well, and the other thing to consider is a lot of these row houses that are being built are still not cheap.
No, and no parking.
Commissioner Allen?
So I just wanted to point out, here's the downside of the way that the state is doing this. Populations are uh, are very transient, right? So it's kind of a losing game. And the statement is correct that housing prices have more to do with supply and demand, but it also has to do with people's ability to pay. And as you lower the quality of housing in areas, and you see this in other areas where they've already done this, we're not the first, you see that what eventually happens is that people in the future end up paying more for less. So I wish that they would build more housing so you help out with that demand side, although it's not a really winnable game because people are very transient. Um, what I'd like to see is at least some minimum standard in which people live, and on that lower standard, that's going to be based on demand and ability to pay.
Well, I think any time that you take and you do a lot of infill and the land supply decreases, prices are going to increase. And the other thing you have is you have less people in the rental market now. So you have more homes being sold, less being rented. And the cost, the operational cost for rentals is substantially more than it used to be. And so all of those things play into it. And I mean, everything from inflation to tariffs all the way down the line, it drives the cost of housing up. SDCs, permit fees. You can go on and on. But I do think that it takes all of it. You've got to cover all of those gamuts. And I would like to see more people in the market doing it, but I also know why they don't.
We want to move on to our next subject.
Sure.
So what is I would say the average rental for, not a house, but for an apartment in Troutdale? Do we know that?
Yes, I have this number written down.
Around 18.
I can provide that to the planning commission tomorrow.
I was just kind of curious because I don't know what the average is.
Yeah, it was in our housing needs analysis, there was an average, and but that was from 2020. And recently, like earlier this year, I took a look at that number to see how much it had increased from 2020, and it had a little bit. So I just need to go back into my spreadsheet of information I've been keeping about housing.
A quick internet AI check says about 17,800.
Yeah. I think the last time I looked, it was approaching 1,800. It was 17 something.
And that's an average one bedroom or two bedroom or one bedroom.
Probably two.
Yeah, I'd say probably 2.
So 18's a little worse than 15 that I was marking.
Although it's still, to a certain extent, it's still, every time I look it up, when I look to see what the relative percentage of owner-occupied structures within Troutdale, for some reason, you go around talking to people and they give you a number like the 50%-ish. For what percentage of structures within Troutdale are owner-occupied. And the actual percentage is up around 67%, which surprises a lot of people, I can tell. I don't know, for some reason they just think there's a lot of rent, because the perception is you look around and there's all these one of the other reasons that housing prices are high is because they get sucked up by corporate property management interests and turned into rentals.
The homes.
Yeah, single family homes get bought cash only sale for cheap and then flipped into the rental market.
I know the house next door, our house has been a rental since 2 years after we bought it.
Yeah.
So
that's a common perception out in the general public, that one of the reasons why single family houses are so bloody expensive is because they people with deep pockets buy up loose inventory and turn them into rentals.
And I know a number of people that own one rental home in town. And so that's kind of a different aspect. That's the only rental that they have.
And I have, in our local vicinity, we have lovely group homes. They remodeled a single family home into a group home.
Yeah.
For people that are challenged. And that again is owner occupied, basically.
Yeah.
Somebody owns it and is occupied. So.
Yeah, that's sort of a niche.
But it's kind of nice that they're there, because it's somebody there all the time, and it's not vacant.
Anyway.
But I guess I would say that, and there probably are corporations and people with wealth buying them up, but they can only rent them for whatever the market's paying.
Well, whatever AI thinks it's paying.
AI tells you.
They give you the average.
All right, Chair.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda, the 25-26 work plan.
Yeah.
All right. So this year's wrap up, I want to give some kudos to Planning Commission because you had some well-earned accomplishments this year, in my opinion. You had no city council or LUBA appeals. Yay.
We have a record going.
You do,
Long time. We do.
which is great. And then, City Council heard some recommendations and approved your recommendations this year for CFAC amendments, our local historic
district criteria and the cleanup of our town center overlay on our zoning and comp plan maps and our comp plan document. So yay, good work on those recommendations to council. You also provided a lot of input on some projects, our downtown parking management plan. I was expecting a presentation this evening, a final wrap up about that project. However, we have been so busy. It was windy wonderland last weekend, and Marley just needed a little bit of time off.
So she would have been busy.
She was busy, so I told her that we'll come back in January and have that recap of that parking management plan. And then, of course, we're going through the design standards for west of 257th. That project is ongoing, and we plan to wrap up that project here in mid-2026. Do you have a question?
No, yeah, they're just getting ready to, they've now put the center protectors for the pedestrians in on 257.
Oh, on 257.
They have it both at 28 and just shortly past Hensley, around the corner there. They're now getting ready to put all that in. Kids are already using the crosswalk there, so be safe when you do, because it's not working yet, but kids are using that crosswalk, so just be aware that it won't be long before, and it looks, hopefully it works the way it's supposed to work.
So upcoming projects in 2026 include the completion of the design standard projects and that work west of 257. We need to complete our middle housing land division standards. We are working on the city's first urban forestry management plan. And even though some of that work doesn't necessarily affect the development, I don't think it's going to affect the development code that much, if at all, but I still want to bring it back to planning commission so you know about all the great work that the Parks Committee has been working on and staff as well with that project. We're going to be kicking off the 2nd Street Bridge feasibility study. This is a feasibility study. We are not at this time, we're not building a bridge over 2nd Street. So I just want to make that very clear. So what this project does is it's going to develop a possible concept for that bridge. We want to look at, is it even feasible? What would the design look like? And how much would it cost? And where would that funding come from in the long run? Because we know the city of Troutdale, we don't have funding to construct a $2 million plus bridge. And this is really just some concept planning for that bridge, and it's going to involve a lot of public engagement. So that project's going to be kicking on. And then just this week, I learned that we received a new grant from the state of Oregon to update our economic opportunities analysis. Yay. That project kicked off in spring of 2026. Our EOA was last updated in 2011. So, and the Planning Commission, you'll be involved in that project as well.
That will help for the URA too.
Yes.
Well, and I, sort of where I was going next is that what identifies and defines all of those opportunity zones and corridors and that kind of thing, or is that something else?
It can help us define, yes, and if we want to, and what kind of programs we can put out there to encourage economic development and jobs here in Troutdale. So, for example, we use the enterprise zone. If we want to, keep using that program, that could be one of our goals in that document.
And those are ones that are really effective.
Right.
And what the economic analysis really kind of tells you is what it feels we can support be a draw, what would be good things to bring in, good uses for property that we have. So it's definitely a good thing, because you don't get it paid for.
Yeah, and then I know, Commissioner Kester, you're on the CAC committee as well, and there's really two primary documents that you need to have in hand when you start to update your comprehensive plan. And I know that the CAC has talked about updating the CAC has talked about updating our comprehensive plan and what that would look like as a work program. And those two documents that we need are EOA and then an updated housing needs analysis. And so this year, I hope to get the EOA checked off, and then the following year, 2027, 2028, we're gonna need to update our housing needs analysis and our housing capacity analysis based on the state's program for housing. So this really is kind of all aligning now to start an update to our comprehensive plan, probably within the next year and a half, 2 years. Commissioner Clance, I see that you have your hand up.
Shouldn't we prioritize a housing needs analysis over things like a Second Street bridge study? And I'm just thinking of all the impending changes that are about to hit us this July. Tana, you're laughing.
I was just coughing here.
Well, I wasn't here when the city sought money for this Second Street Bridge feasibility study. And I do want to say that the money that we received to do this feasibility study it came from the federal government, and it was a Oregon Community Paths grant, and that's how this study is being paid for.
Thank you.
So go team into 2026. That's my pep talk.
Is that it?
That's it.
I would like to see if it would be all right if I just attended the CAC meeting in January, just to kind of let them know what's coming and how we're approaching it.
As far as,
All of these land use.
oh, yeah, no, certainly.
I think that would be a good idea, because that will keep them in the loop, and they won't feel like they're behind them, back into the horse.
And I'm just thinking there may be some things that we could even look at, and these will come up later, but things I'm thinking about is maybe increasing the notification area. Just doing some things so maybe the public doesn't feel quite as cut out of the loop as what they would.
Yeah, I know that, we do certainly, and if nothing else, because of myself, but there's also, I'm Commissioner Minkoff, that sits on the CAC as well, and so, and with me as CAC chair right now, you're obviously always welcome, Danny, to come present and join, but yeah, I certainly don't ignore what planning commission is coming in Dakota. Absolutely keeps me honest.
No, and it's just where we were in the past kind of called out for not being.
Yeah, no,
I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're all on
yeah, no,
working for the same
absolutely,
goal here,
absolutely,
if that's okay.
yeah, no.
Can't only 3 planning commissioners be there at the same time?
4.
No, because that's a quorum.
4 becomes a quorum. Okay, 3 is no big deal. The only thing is if you have 4, you just have to declare it.
Right.
I'm a little sensitive, having been in trouble for that before, so.
You,
Mhm.
no, you
And
just,
it was at CAC too, so yeah.
yeah, you just have to declare that there's a quorum present.
Don't you have to notice that too?
No, you just have to declare it. Because it's not an official meeting.
Out of the committee, that's,
Right.
Right. I will double check with our city attorney on that
Yeah,
question.
see, might want to get confirmation from Ed on that one. What,
Yeah, you might have to put it on the agenda. It is a public meeting, right? You add it to the agenda, and that, I think that makes it legal. I do believe it's a good idea, though. Chair Stephenson, I think you have a good handle of what we're doing here and good insight. So I do think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think you just have to declare it, because I was gonna say, in that capacity, I'm not a part of the decision-making body or deliberating.
Doesn't matter. It's just like if four of you meet at a dinner.
I understand.
And within the last, I think, 2 years, I did some updates about, public meeting laws. And the state kind of updated some rules, so I just want to double check.
yeah, I seem to remember being at that council meeting when those came across. There was a lot of head scratching
At the council.
at the council.
Yeah, there should be
Ed,
that group.
Ed did his best to clarify.
Did a lot of mea culpa.
That's right. Okay. I usually am pretty clean on these things, but I'll make sure that I'm right. Okay. Thank you.
But in any case, you are always welcome. Check out what other boxes we need to.
Are we on to bigger, better things?
Yep.
Back up this phone.
I am. All right. I don't think I have anything more to add, other than Merry Christmas to all of you, and I wish you all a Happy New Year, and I'll see you in 2026.
Commissioner Allen, anything?
No, just the same thing. Not going to see you all, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Commissioner Minkoff? Anything? Mr. Stevens? Anything?
Nothing to add. Happy holidays. Be safe out there.
Commissioner Wilcox?
Yeah, I want to speak to what Commissioner Custer was talking about, rentals being gobbled up. I went through our entire development, 257 units, if I remember correctly, somewhere in that range. I was curious to see how many rentals there were. These are all single family detached, by the way. I was curious to see how many rentals there were. So I looked at, what I was looking at was billing address being different than the building, mailing address being different than the street address. And found quite a few. It wasn't a huge number, less than I expected actually. But I did find one landlord that happened to own 5 units on the same street, which is quite a takeover. So just wanted to share that. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lyons?
Happy holidays, and I sent a note to you and Erica. I will not be present for the February meeting, unfortunately. Sorry.
On for that meeting.
Company calls.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Kester?
Yeah, happy holidays to everyone. I'm sort of finishing up my photo album that I've been collecting from my front door on the apparently named York Terrace Apartments. I am given the sort of strange looks that I've received when I asked if anybody at the city had any input on that name. The answer I tend to be getting is no. York Terrace, the signs are already up. Supposedly there's going to be some open house or something here, probably after the holidays, where they're going to give the neighbors or local community people a walkthrough of the facility. So I'm looking forward to that. They're wrapping everything up. The landscaping looks pretty good.
And I'll keep the commission, I'll make sure everybody knows about that walkthrough and open house at Home Forward after the holidays here in early 2026. I've been talking to Leslie at Home Forward. She's the project manager. And when she sends out that invitation, I want to make sure it gets to all of you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, happy holidays to all of you. I'll see you next year. Also, I have a question. I know I should have asked this sooner. I noticed that they put the stairs, access from York Terrace, down to 257th, but I don't see a ADA access.
Stairs.
I don't know if that's required.
I don't know if it's required. I have to go back.
But I know the stairs are already in
Yes.
and ready to go. So they have a nice stair. I mean, the stairmaster coming up the dead. But it is, but it looks nice. I mean, it's where it's more convenient to the bus stop. But other than that, that's all.
All right, I just want to say, I thought that the tree lighting was extremely well attended. Frankly, probably the most people I've ever seen at that event. Not that I've attended all of them, but it was very, very crowded, and it was kind of the perfect night for it. We were supposed to get some pretty awful weather, and we didn't have that. And I thought it went off well. Thought there was a little issue with the tree, but it was seemed to go really well. There was a lot of the scavenger hunt was very well received, and a lot of kids, and it was just a very positive community event. And so kudos to staff for putting that together and executing it. And yes, Marley seemed pretty tired.
Yeah.
By the time the night
It was the largest Windy Wonderland celebration that the community has held, with the, just the amount of attendance we received from the community. We're getting some stats in that's telling us that we've doubled our numbers from the previous year.
Well, I was going to say, not even the Windy Wonderland, yes, but even the tree
Tree
lighting.
lighting.
It was,
Yeah,
we've done the tree
yeah,
lighting for a
that
very long time.
Includes the tree lighting.
And this was really kind of off the charts. I also want to thank everyone for all of your dedication, your effort this year. And as we go through and work through these code amendments, unless we hear differently, we're going to try to do the best we can to make this fit for Troutdale as best we can. Okay. So whatever that looks like, we're going to do the best we can for our citizens. And with that, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And again, thank you for everything that you do for the city. Really appreciate it. That, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. We are adjourned, and we will see you on January 14th.
See you next year.
Bye.
Bye.